On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, Bitcoin Cash starts gaining some momentum, Poloniex publishes a new insane set of terms and conditions, and a young man from the UK has started to experiment with solar-powered mining rigs. All of that coming up on today's edition of the Cryptoverse, so stay tuned. Hi there guys, welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I'm your host, Chris Coney. I'm also the founder of Cryptoversity, the online school where you can learn about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. Find out more at cryptoversity.com. So you've tuned into the news and commentary show of the Cryptoverse, so let's get right into the first story. Bitcoin Cash gains some momentum. So we go over to Coindance, the Bitcoin Cash version of Coindance, of course, and then we see the mining difficulty on Bitcoin Cash is now, it's 83% easier than it is on the Bitcoin main chain. Now that means when we look at, say, block times further down, we'll see something very interesting. We'll see they're becoming more frequent. So in addition to that, like as more people are able to make Bitcoin Cash transactions, and as more people are becoming able to access their Bitcoin Cash, the free market can give us much more accurate info on how everyone feels about the split, right? And which side they're on. But talking about the blocks themselves, you see the last block was 30 minutes ago, and then there are 4 blocks that say they were 1 hour ago. There's a couple that say they were 2 hours ago, and then there's a whole bunch that said they were 3 hours ago. So while before we were seeing 3-hour gaps in between blocks, It's now to me, it feels like there's a bit of momentum being gathered here, like a block every, sometimes several per hour, sometimes one every 30 minutes. So damn sight better than it was when it first started, and it's no doubt due to the decrease in the mining difficulty. I said it's 83% easier than the main chain. Well, Coindance are reporting that it's operating at 17% the difficulty, which is just said the other way around, right? Now, with regards to the price, right, to begin with, the vast majority was, it seemed like the vast majority was against Bitcoin Cash because the price was crashing, right? However, that's not a fair assessment because only a few people were able to access their Bitcoin Cash and then essentially vote by selling it or holding it, right? And that was for the first few days. But thanks to videos like the one I put out the other day on how to access your Bitcoin Cash on a Ledger Nano S hardware wallet, check that out from Friday's episode. Now an increasing number of people can unlock their Bitcoin Cash and thus it's able to flow into the market. And this is where the price will become much more meaningful when people can actually decide to sell it or buy more or hold it or whatever, right? Meanwhile, SegWit, we hop over to the Bitcoin version of Coindance. Meanwhile, SegWit is due to lock in tomorrow. Very exciting stuff. So we'll keep a very close eye on this because after we get lock-in tomorrow, it's then on to the final stretch where we have to wait 2 weeks, which is the activation period. And once that finishes, SegWit will finally be a reality. So look out for those real cheap transactions or those transaction fees coming at you real soon. So that's all I've got to say in terms of the Bitcoin network update. Let's move on to Poloniex publishes their new, in my opinion, insane set of terms and conditions. So let me pull it up on the screen here. I've highlighted a couple of specific bits. I'm only going to go through the first bit because I think this is enough. Now, I removed all my crypto from Poloniex in preparation for the Bitcoin hard fork, right? And then when I went to log back in a few days after that, there was this big notification to say Poloniex have updated their terms and conditions and I needed to review them. So I did. And I got a shock. So check this out. First bit in red, it says, these terms of use contain a binding arbitration clause and a class action waiver that impact your rights about how to resolve disputes. Please read it carefully. Did you get that? It says class action waiver, meaning we're probably going to have to surrender our right to bring any kind of class action suit against Poloniex. Okay? So let's read on. The orange bit says, by accessing or using the Poloniex website, we agree to be bound by these terms of use. So that bit's going to be important in a second, because simply by accessing the site, we agree to the terms. Let's move on. Then I've highlighted a bit in yellow here that says, Poloniex reserves the right to change or modify these terms and conditions contained in these terms, including but not limited to any policy or guideline of the site at any time and at its sole discretion. So basically they can change the rules at any time, right? Fair enough. However, the green bit is the kicker. It says, any changes or modifications will be effective immediately upon posting the revisions to the site or at the instant that Poloniex transmits the information to users, for example, via email. These changes will apply at the instant or at that instant to all then and current and subsequent uses of the site. You waive any right you may have to receive such specific notice of such changes or modifications. Yikes. So what does that mean? It means that the new terms apply the instant that Poloniex transmits the information to the users, which means like the terms could change from 1 minute to the next while we're using the platform, which is kind of interesting. And if they say choose to let us know by email, for example, and then say you don't happen to have your email inbox open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unlucky for you, because by continuing to use the platform, you're basically agreeing to terms you don't even know exist. So I'm like, this is harsh, right? Now, I'm not going to go into any more specifics beyond what I've already read, because I think I've made my point about the insanity. But I think this is grossly irresponsible, and frankly, it's unnecessary, right? If I were rolling out these new terms and conditions, I would set the system up so whenever the terms were modified, we would be asked to agree to them, ticking a box the next time we logged in. And that's an explicit agreement to the terms rather than an implicit agreement to the terms. It's the way they're doing it, they're assuming everyone's okay with it, which is a little bit dodgy in my eyes, right? I mean, what if Poloniex, this is a crazy example, but what if, say, they decide they need a bit of extra cash, right? And then they make a subtle change to their terms to say, it's okay for Poloniex to take 10% of everyone's Bitcoin balance whenever they want, right? Imagine that. Now, that would be truly insane if they did that, but based on what we've just read, there's nothing technically stopping them from doing that, right? And then they can defend themselves on the basis that, well, everyone agreed, right? So that's that. So I would encourage you to look at these terms and conditions. It shocked me so much that I've had a serious second thoughts about going back into Poloniex and using it again, right? I want to, because I want to do Bitcoin lending and all this other stuff, but I'm like, that's a bit harsh for me, Anyway, so the final story today is a young man from the UK by the name of Graham Smith has started a business called Solar to Crypto, building solar-powered mining rigs. Now, as you can imagine, I get contacted by a lot of people, and they all want exposure on the show. And most of them, they offer me ridiculous amounts of money, but I figure one Lambo is quite enough for one man, so I usually say no. Now, the guy Graham, when I watched his video and studied and I've conversed with him by email, I think the reason I'm talking about him is because he reminds me a lot of myself from like 10 years ago. The difference is that he has someone like me looking out for him. So he contacted me and explaining that he wanted to do this. He was doing this project and he wanted to ask my advice, number one. But number two, he's looking for funding. He's looking for supporters. He's looking for people to help him build the project up. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna put him on. So his company is called Solar to Crypto, and you can visit his website here using the link which I'll put in the YouTube description. And from there you can link to all the other resources that he provides. He's got this kind of Thomas Edison workshop going on over there. So anyone who likes the concept of this like home-built solar-powered mining rig with his graphics cards and so on, check out his site. He's going for this Essex innovation funding thing. So it's a burgeoning project, but I think people like this and projects like this need to be encouraged. Because if we're big on decentralization and we really do want power to the people, then we must encourage these kinds of efforts, right? So please go to his site, whatever you can help him with, advice if you're an electronics expert, anything like that. If you've got connections with the Essex Innovation Centre, help him out in any way you can. And I'm doing my bit for him as well. All right, guys, thanks very much for joining me today. If you liked this episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new around here, get subscribed. And if you would like access to my very best material, such as my structured online courses, which will teach you how to make and save money with Bitcoin, check out cryptoversity.com. All right, guys, that's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Market Roundup and another edition of this news and commentary show. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.